I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the November 8th, 2017 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. I'd like to welcome our newest member, Caitlin Nover, Caitlin Nover, and we're very glad to have her on board. I'm drowned out by the music. I'll try that again. This is the November 8th, 2017 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. I'll call the meeting to order, and our first order of business is a continuation of a notice of intent, care of the City of Lowell by LEC Environmental Consultants. This is essentially the shortcut name for it is the Concord River Greenway, Phase 2B and 3. I believe this, well, I suppose I better read the whole thing. The project location at many locations on Lawrence Street, Perry Street, Rogers Street, Andover Street, Howe Street, and Fayette Street. It's a proposal to construct phases 2B and 3 of the Concord River Greenway. The activities occur within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands and the bank of the Concord River, the 25-foot riverfront area of the Concord River, bordering land subject to flooding, land underwater, and/or bordering vegetated wetlands. Is there anyone speaking for this project? I know it's going to be continued, but is there anyone here that was planning to ask for the continuance? Well, we'll take a vote then to continue this project per request of the proponent. If I could have a motion.
Sure. I'll offer a motion to continue this notice of intent to the December 13th, 2017 meeting at the request of the applicant.
Seconded.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So, moving on, we have, that project, by the way, will be on our next agenda, which is, what date?
December 13th.
December 13th. There's no meeting on the 4th because of the holiday, I believe. New business, notice of intent, David St. Hilaire, 205 Billerica Street, Lowell, DEP number 2060772. The project location is 205 Billerica Street. This is a notice of intent filed by the Daily Group for the construction of 3 single-family dwellings within 100 feet of the Concord River and its bordering vegetated wetlands. I believe this is also being continued.
Yes, the applicant requested for continuance to December 14th.
Okay, we received a request for a continuance on this project. Would that be on our next agenda? Okay, so we could have the motion to continue per request.
I'll offer a motion to continue the notice of intent to the December 13th, 2017 meeting at the request of the applicant.
Second.
Seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving along, our next notice of intent is from TRC Environmental by the City of Lowell, DEP number 2060773. The project location is along the Merrimack and Concord Rivers, starting at 129 John Street, and extending to the Lowell Auditorium. Yes, the Billerica Street.
Can you tell us that 205 Billerica Street is continued?
The which one?
On 205 Billerica Street?
The request came in for a continuance on that project. I'm sorry that we didn't know in time.
We just got the notice right before the meeting ourselves. We weren't given advance notice either.
I hope not. This is the first time it's actually appeared on the agenda, as far as I know. We did have a meeting, a quorum problem at our last meeting, so we didn't meet. But I know I feel badly for neighborhood people when this occurs.
Do that.
It,
You send out a notice, and asking us all to come to the hearing, we want to be here, of course, and then cancel last minute without notifying us.
I think what would probably help if you as a neighborhood had a contact person that you could give a number to the DPD department, and then should this occur, that person could contact someone in your group and set up a phone tree or something. But I know I've been in the same position myself on projects, and it's not fun. And I'm very sorry that this occurred. I was actually out at Billerica Street today looking over the project. I had no idea it was going to be continued.
See the junkyard next door from the old building inspector, when the inspector put there, all those trailers that are illegally.
Well, I think that's off the property. I don't believe that's part of the property as far.
Still shouldn't be there. It was,
This,
originally, there was only one trailer years ago that was permitted to stay there.
okay, this is not,
And all this stuff is, it's like a junkyard.
yeah, this is not something that's before our board, I'm sorry. But that's something to take up, with the building inspector. If I can continue with our meeting, I'm very sorry, but I think you should get organized a little and get that phone number, and then one can call the other. Yeah, that's very unfortunate. I'm sorry about that. I was caught up in it myself.
Not unfortunate, it's ignorant to have this happen.
Well, it's,
We don't take our time to come here.
well,
We
it,
don't have the decency.
yeah, please don't preach to us, because it was out of our hands. If the proponent didn't want to come tonight, that was his prerogative.
Well, I hope it's noted, they doesn't even show up at his meetings.
It will be in the minutes. Okay, continuing, I'll read this next notice of intent again. We got a little sidetracked here. This is, our next notice of intent is for TRC Environmental Corporation on behalf of the City of Lowell. The project number is 2060773, and the location is along the Merrimack and Concord Rivers, starting at 129 John Street and ending at the Lowell Auditorium. Notice of intent has been filed by TRC Environmental on behalf of the City of Lowell to construct Phase 2 of the Merrimack Riverwalk. The activities will occur in part within the regulated resource areas, including the 100-foot buffer zone to the bank of the Merrimack and Concord River, land subject to flooding, riverfront area, and the buffer zone of land underwater. We have an extensive submission here. Is there someone here representing TRC? Hello, if you could introduce yourselves, and I think probably if you set that up just inside the railing is usually where we put it. Yeah. If you could angle it, then the TV camera as well as perhaps some of the public can see it rather than just the board. We have one microphone, and then some of these others, if you turn them on, are possibly available.
Just push it. Oh, there we go.
Okay, this looks very interesting. If you could introduce yourselves as you speak, that would probably be the easiest way.
Okay, I'm Christopher Hayes, Transportation Project Manager in the Department of Development and Planning, the project manager for the Riverwalk Phase 2 project. TRC Environmental is joining us, so I guess we'll let them introduce themselves when they start up. And I was just going to give an overview of the project and then let TRC get into the details. So as you might know, Riverwalk Phase 2 is the continuation of Merrimack Riverwalk Phase 1, which kind of planning started 40 years ago. Construction of Phase 1 happened in 1988-89. This is a $2.8 million project funded in a partnership with Lowell National Historical Park, and it's funded via Federal Highway Administration grants of various types. It would represent about a 0.4-mile extension of the Riverwalk that has the major feature is a bridge that spans about 150 feet over the Concord River. So starting at where the Riverwalk terminates right now at Boot Mills, you'd go about 1,300 feet over the sewer interceptor, which was built to support the walkway. It would go under the Cox Bridge, and the final 95 feet would be a steel ramp structure that would elevate the Riverwalk about 6.7 feet, and it would be ADA grade of about 8% with landings. And so that would get you back up to the grade level. Then there'd be a 10-foot cantilever over what is known as the Boiler Building, which is the mill building owned by Massachusetts Mills that is right at the confluence of the Concord and the Merrimack Riverwalks. And so a wood deck, steel cantilever would go around that and then connect into a courtyard that is within Massachusetts Mills. There'd be a new 964 square foot asphalt path that connects to an existing arcade through another one of their buildings. There's an existing Riverwalk from there all the way to our proposed bridge location. And then we'd have a bowstring steel truss bridge with a wooden deck that would cross there and get you to Lowell Memorial Auditorium and the Concord River Greenway. There'll be lighting poles approximately every 200 feet. We haven't finalized that yet. We're about 25% design right now, but between 25 and 75%. The materials and details were chosen with kind of three things in mind. One, to meet the standards of the downtown Lowell Historic District and to really continue aesthetically the same aesthetic as the current Riverwalk. Two, to fit within the standards of the National Park System, but then three, to stand up to the periodic flooding of the Merrimack River. It's not within the 10-foot, but it is definitely, 10-year, but it's definitely within the 100-year. We know this thing is going to be underwater occasionally, and we're designing it as such. Our goals really were to meet requirements of the ADA code, which is a half-mile accessible entrance, or an accessible entrance every half a mile, to connect the Riverwalk to the Greenway. And we have a little picture there that shows where the Riverwalk really would connect you to where the bend in the river is, all the way to the Greenway, and with the planned Greenway extension, all the way down the Concord River, just crossing Merrimack Street. We also thought that the cantilever at the confluence would be an excellent viewing node for the river and for the city, and that's illustrated. So that cantilever is illustrated kind of on the left of the board. The ramp that gets you up there is illustrated in the middle, and then the bridge is illustrated on the right. And we have a kind of a mock-up of the bridge. It's not going to be the final color, but it's going to be roughly the same type of bridge and the same location. So some of you might know the history of this project. We had gotten an order of commissions for Riverwalk Phase 2 several years ago. That was for what we call the access point at the Bridge Street node. this is the same funding, this is kind of the same project, but when we finally acquired the Bridge Street node from National Grid a couple of years ago and did some geotechnical work, we realized it was more complicated under the ground than we initially thought. And that means that we aren't abandoning the idea of having an access node at that location, but we decided that for the money that we had, the grant money we had, would get more bang for our buck, that we could actually go the entire way to the Lowell Memorial Auditorium as in the original plans, and then take another look at that access node in the future with a different project, with a different pot of money, and with a little bit more time that we can do some creative engineering to get around those challenges we found underneath the ground. I just wanted to say that we do have broad support from Massachusetts Mills. We've been working very closely with them. We would be getting a public access easement over their land and easement that would allow us to maintain the Riverwalk that is on their land. We are also going to be coordinating with Boot. We're just engaging them now. We don't have anything that's on their property, but of course it does interact with their property quite a bit. We're working with Lowell Historical Board, and really our goal was to really disturb as little area as possible, trying to build it all on already disturbed area in the footprint that had been planned for the last 40 years. So that's kind of a broad overview. So I want to turn it over to Laura Lafarbe at, I probably mispronounced your name, I'm sorry, at TRC to give more detail.
Thank you.
I'm Laura Lefevre. I'm TRC project manager. John Thomas is actually the wetland specialist, and will be giving an overview of the existing conditions. And
Yeah, we can actually, I'm actually going to turn the mic over here. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay. Let's see. This one works.
Can you pull that forward a little, because we can't see it, yeah.
Do you want to stand over there? Yeah. Okay. You're a lefty? Do you want to stand here? I can stand here.
no, it's okay.
Okay. Can everyone see it all right?
I think you might have to hold that.
I'll just hold this like this. There you go. All right, so as Chris said, that we are extending the Riverwalk Phase 1, and we're going to be extending it with Phase 2. Along the embankment of the bank is actually established off of the foundation of the existing building, and that's where we have established the bank. That's where the buffer zone comes off of. The bordering land subject to flooding has been established by the elevation. That's shown depicted on the plans. The riverfront is consistent with the delineated bank, so that 25-foot riverfront area is going to be established off the bank as well. That's established on these plans. There is going to be a section of the cantilevered boardwalk, which is on sheet. It's going to start on sheet L4. It's going to start on L304. And we were talking about the cantilevered boardwalk earlier, and that's going to be primarily around the corner of the building here. And that's going to be a structure that's supported. They're going to be steel supports that are tied into the building itself, and that's all going to be above the existing Lowell interceptor. The rest of it is going to be within the existing Lowell interceptor area, and also further down, it's going to be consistent with the existing.
There's a pavement section. Yeah,
Yeah,
so the
existing
cantilevered
pavement.
section will be mounted on steel beams, and then it'll be boarded decking, the ramp and the cantilevered section. In the section starting from the boot mills, that's going to be all on the interceptor, the existing concrete interceptor.
Right, and then once we get down here closer towards the Concord River section, here's the next page. We're going to be crossing the Concord River.
Yeah, connecting to the existing
Yes,
walkway,
connecting to the,
Mass Mills.
connecting to the existing walkway with the Mass Mills. This project is going to be located entirely within the riverfront area, entirely within the buffer zone. Portions of the project are going to be within the bordering land subject to flooding. And, you know, our stance is that, for instance, this project, you know, we can't design this any other way with you know, relation to the current design and also the current conditions. So this is basically the best alternative we have for facilitating the design and also, you know, the public for this bridge and also the catwalk.
The footbridge will span the Concord River about 150 feet, and it's 10 feet wide. It'll have railings, lighting, and then terminate at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium.
Well, it seems to fall in line with the regulations for paths along rivers. You've got a design that's compatible with what's already there. I don't think there's any wildlife there, is there?
Well, actually, interestingly enough, the area was mapped previously as being bald eagle habitat. And as of August this past year, 2017, was taken off. Natural heritage is a priority habitat. So, interesting.
I have actually seen an eagle flying over that bridge.
Have you?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. And you have a 10-foot width on your path, which.
Right.
So, I mean, I think the design, certainly, as you stated, there's no other way to do it.
Yeah.
Going around the corner of that building, how is that attachment? That building is in poor condition at the moment. Is that attachment going to prevent the rehab of that building in any way?
Yeah,
Or,
they've done structural engineering studies, and the steel will be bolted into the foundation of the building, so they're coordinating with Mass Mills on that.
Right, so the cantilever, the steel supports would be bolted into the concrete river wall, not the building itself. We are also, Massachusetts Mills is looking at an aggressive timeline to redevelop that parcel, and they are very acute to making sure that what we're doing doesn't prevent what they want to do. So we have had several discussions on that. For example, we originally were going to have lights hanging off of that building, but eventually they decided to say, no, we should put them on poles to give them more freedom to do what they needed to do to that building.
well, certainly it will enhance their project, I would expect. Let's see, you mentioned that the 100-year flood will inundate that area possibly, and how have you designed this so that it won't be damaged if that occurs?
And Dave Sleeper's here as well, so if he has any additional things to say after I say, he might be able to. He's been the kind of engineer supporting the project from DPD. But one of the things we were especially concerned with was, first of all, everything's steel. That is a structural support. We had chosen the southern yellow pine because it can handle being submerged underwater and dry out without being degraded. But if it does being degraded, it also is easy to replace. As far as the steel, our structural engineer, Steve Langevin of, I don't remember his company, I'm sorry, but our structural engineer did looking at other riverside structures as far as the cantilever supports and the ramp supports to make sure that they would be able to handle any debris that would, that might run into them during flood conditions, because what accompanies flood conditions is debris moving at a quick pace. So he actually called for a little bit larger steel in order to be able to support that. All the conduits for the lighting will be waterproof. Is there anything I'm missing?
Okay, so the materials are going to be attached securely enough so that floodwaters aren't going to be washing pieces away or anything like that.
That's right, yes.
Well, I may have some things here, but I'll open this up to the board members.
First of all, I think this is a great project, and I agree, it's a nice continuation of the Phase 1 project. My only question and comment is just, and I think you've answered it, somewhat has to just do with the coordination, because obviously you got Mass Mills that at some point is going to finish developing that building, presumably. I do know that there was a project that came before this board some time ago, and I think one of the challenges wasn't just Mass Mills, it was the hydropower plant and the canals and coordinating access there. So it seems like there's a bunch of interested parties that need to be coordinated with, and I just want to get a sense from you in terms of that coordination and sequencing. How far have you thought that thing out so that you're not going to have to undo or potentially delay once you get started, assuming, the commission votes to, order, issuing a standard City of Lowell order of conditions for the project, approving it.
So one thing I think you might be indicating is that Enel decided to, I'm not sure what the correct term is, but they asked FEMA to discontinue their license at the powerhouse, which is right next to the boiler building. And they have essentially a 99-year lease with Mullins Corp, or with Massachusetts Mills, that they would terminate, and that would allow Massachusetts Mills to redevelop that building along with the boiler building. We have been in coordination with Massachusetts Mills about that. Honestly, the boiler building is probably the more complicated one, because we are ramping up to close to that grade. Mm-hmm. The powerhouse, we're down below, so we really shouldn't impact that. I should also say we've been coordinating with the National Park quite a bit as well. I forgot to mention that, but Charlie Tanetti is here from the National Park as well. So that's kind of the other interested stakeholder, both because they are the pass-through agency for the funding and because of the fact that this is within the boundaries of the National Park, or at least the Historic Preservation District. Let's see. We are also coordinating with John Rudzinski, who is essentially doing the redevelopment for Massachusetts Mills. He did the picker building. He may or may not do the boiler building, depending on how Massachusetts Mills wants to find its funding for that. Those projects are expected to go ahead, and they're saying like 2020 when they actually think shovels in the ground for those projects. They get all the financing together, which should be well after we complete this project. The other thing that we've said is, honestly, if we do need to close the Riverwalk for whatever reason, because they haven't, we're pretty sure that it's not going to get in the way because we've been coordinating closely with them. But if there's some unforeseen thing where we do need to close the Riverwalk, we're prepared to do that. And they're prepared to repair or replace anything that they mess up during their construction.
Okay.
In your coordination with the boiler building, did you discuss the disposal site that is on the property?
The disposal site? Sorry.
Yes, Massachusetts 21E hazardous materials. It appears that portions of the boiler building property are within an open disposal site.
Yes, so I think this is what we've been specifically talking to them about is the courtyard, and I don't know if you guys know more about this than me. Asbestos, I believe, was the major issue in that courtyard area and in the building. In the building, it hasn't. We've determined that there's no, but in that courtyard, that is a problem. And so what Massachusetts Mills, and we're still coordinating with this. We don't have the final language or MOA, or maybe we'll work it into the easement yet, but the tentative plan is that they will coordinate with DEP and make sure and essentially clean up the location that the Riverwalk is on, that the proposed Riverwalk will be on, fence that area off. The rest of the courtyard would be well secured and fenced off from that until they renovate the boiler building, at which point they would restore, what's the word I'm looking for, clean up that entire courtyard area along with the boiler building. When that project goes forward, and during that cleanup, they would probably essentially tear up our the reason why we're going with asphalt instead of brick or concrete or something nice is because we expect to be torn up at that point during their remediation project, and then they'd replace it with something that's sympathetic to their courtyard, which probably would be brick pavers. We would maintain the easement during that time, except we would close it to the public when they're working on it, obviously.
So is the courtyard currently paved?
Courtyard's currently just turf.
Turf, okay. As far as a construction staging area in that courtyard, it appeared that asbestos was found at shallow depths in the soil. So putting a construction staging area there might not be appropriate.
I'm sorry, that should not, we aren't planning to stage there anymore. That must have been before we found, the original plan was that they thought they were going to remediate this year and we'd have that, but we should have eliminated that from our plans.
And actually, the combined phase one and phase two report came out last week, so I'm sure it's not, hasn't been reviewed and implemented into the plan yet.
Yeah, they just, I think, they just told us about the fact that they wouldn't be doing it this year, they'd be doing it in 4 years or whatever, when they did that like a week before that, so I assume that's why they gave us such recent notice.
Yeah, that's shown on sheet 205. So we'll eliminate that in the plan, that area.
Yes, we definitely, I thought we already had, but we will.
Okay.
Jeff? I'd like to talk a minute about your landscaping and pruning. I don't know who's in charge of that, but obviously some of those trees shouldn't be growing in the sewer interceptor. So I'm assuming those are mostly the trees you're talking about cutting back?
Yeah, so we actually just got a message, oh yeah, those trees, a message from wastewater, and another one of the stakeholders that we've been coordinating with is the Lowell Regional Wastewater Utility. It's their sewer interceptor. Actually, it's been designed for them to be able to drive an electrical vehicle up the ramp and still get into the sewer manholes that are there. I forgot to mention that. But another thing that they mentioned after we made our NOI submission is that there are some trees that are growing from the base of the interceptor that are damaging the interceptor. We did have, I believe in our description of our landscaping and demolition plan, that we would be doing selective removal of any trees that were damaging Riverwall or infrastructure. I asked them, are you talking about clear cutting those trees, or are there actual just certain trees that are damaging them? They said certain trees. They want to retain the trees that are not damaging the infrastructure and remove the trees to the stumps, the ones that are damaging the infrastructure. Pruning would be all of those trees, just so they branches aren't interfering with the walkway area of the interceptor. The other trees that would be removed, besides the ones that are, there's a couple of, there's a tree near the bridge landing area that may need to be removed for the footer of the bridge. There's another tree that would be growing essentially right underneath the bridge that would be removed. There's vegetation at the confluence that would be underneath that cantilever that would also need to be removed. There are a couple of trees on the Lowell Memorial Auditorium side. Those may or may not be needed to be removed for to make room for the crane, honestly. If we remove those trees, we'd replace them, and actually they, I believe, are an invasive species of maple, and we'd switch it with a native species of maple.
Okay, so what is your plan for replacing trees? Or do you have a landscape plan that,
So our intent was for every mature tree that we remove, that we would replace somewhere on Massachusetts Mills property. We asked them for potential locations because they did do a lot of tree removal lately and thought there might be places that could be ideal trees that would shade public areas as well as their parking lot. They haven't gotten back to us yet, so we still are developing that. Our intent is to replace the 2 mature trees that we remove.
okay, so you're not looking at it particularly from a standpoint of invasives versus other trees? It's more just what's in your way or what's damaging the structure?
Yeah, yes.
So every tree has an equal chance to survive out there?
You know, we could, our primary consultant on that is Rick Williams of Carroll Johnson and Associates. They've got great landscaping cred. I could ask them to look into that, see if there's any invasive species that we should be removing while we're going ahead and removing the trees that are damaging infrastructure. If the Conservation Commission thinks that's a good idea, I think it's a good idea.
Okay, you have silt fence and hay bales all over your plans. Would you actually be using some kind of a straw wattle or something like that, rather than hay bales?
Yeah, I was thinking that might be a little bit better too, the compost sack versus the,
Plus, they're smaller too.
yeah, the lay down areas, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then for, in the water, we have the silt booms, for the walk, for the ramp, and then also the beginning section with the silt boom, just in case something falls in. There's not gonna be any work, within the water for the construction. They think they
so
can do
could
it all on
you
land.
explain the boom, where that will be and how it will work?
You actually,
Yeah, we have it.
yeah, it's on this plan right here. Discuss that.
Let's see. Okay. This is the ramp. And then the bridge too, on either end. I think it's on the sheet. Yeah.
There you go.
Is the bridge crossing there? So they would propose a silt rooms on either end, they're doing the construction. Again, there's no work within the water.
Mhm. Okay. What's the duration of your construction? I mean, how long are those booms and straw bales and everything going to be out there?
Well, the straw, well, not the straw barrels, but erosion control measures will be in place until the work is complete. But the time frame and estimate would have to be from the contractor, right?
Yeah, we're projecting right now a construction period that begins technically in February, but that's kind of advanced for the steel fabrication and such, and ends at the end of the construction season in September, October. That's a pretty quick turnaround. That's partly due to a funding expiration, so we're asking for extension on the funding. We think actually it would probably go into the next construction season just because of how long it would take to fabricate the steel.
So your construction methods would be able to be removed quickly enough if the 100-year flood comes during the project?
And what's your contingency plan?
Contingency plan.
I understand the bridge as pretty quick, the construction, I spoke to.
Yeah, honestly, so the elements of, when I say it's a long construction period, a lot of that's because we're waiting for railing to be fabricated. We bolt in the railing, you know, we're waiting for this, we're waiting for that. The major piece, which would be construction of the cantilever, construction of the ramp, and the construction of the bridge, those can each be taken relatively quickly once we have the materials. The bridge is a prefabricated bridge that would be craned in the course of like 2 days. The ramp and cantilever aren't prefabricated and drop in, but they're still saying that those would be only a matter of a couple weeks, I think Rick was thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at the most. He said like 4 months to do the ramp and the cantilever
altogether.
altogether, yeah.
Yeah.
When I spoke to him today.
So the mob and demob from the site, it's probably a shorter duration. The construction duration is predominantly driven by waiting for the materials to be fabricated and delivered to site.
Yeah, exactly.
I was wondering about, this probably doesn't have too much, security features, like against vandalism and things like that, as far as damage. I don't know whether there's a security issue on the rest of the Riverwalk, or,
I do know that the City of Lowell Police Department has enhanced patrolling along the Riverwalk because there's been some areas where people have been hanging around and doing things they shouldn't be doing.
it seems to be a little bit, probably because that building is abandoned at the moment, it seems to be a little bit off the beaten track over there.
We do have concerns. Lowell, we're actually working with Lowell Police Department. They're providing security cameras and the cable. We're providing the conduit and the mounts essentially as part of our project. So we will have security cameras there. I know that they aren't exactly looking at the cameras all the time, so we're also looking into how we can also share that feed perhaps with Massachusetts Mills, which does have on-site nightly security, and maybe they share the cameras that are pointing at our public areas. As far as vandalism, it's the same materials as the rest, which have been chosen to be vandal-proof as well as they can. I know the benches are the things that get hit the most, it seems like, and hardest to clean up, and we don't have any benches in this project. The railing is a little bit easier to clear up.
Okay, is there anything else we should know before I open it up to the public? Anything else you want to add?
I think that's it, right?
Okay, we do have some people here that have interest in this project, so at this point, and if the board thinks of something, we can come back to the board later. But if there's anyone that would like to speak for or against this project, come to the microphone and introduce yourself.
I'm Jane Calvin with the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust. It's wonderful to see this project come to fruition after so many years. We are really excited about the connection to the Concord River Greenway. I was actually present for a walk that happened probably about 10 years ago with DPD, where we mapped out where that bridge would land on both sides of the river. And so I'm really excited to see that happen as well. And so for the folks that are listening, the Greenway, if you just walk across the street from the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, that's at the Davidson lot, that's the beginning of the Concord River Greenway. And then at the December 13th meeting, we'll be back again with the city to talk about the remaining sections of the Greenway that'll happen. It's so exciting to think about all the connections that are happening with the trail network in the city. So thank you for everyone's work.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to add comments for this project? Comments for or against?
I'm Terry Holt. I wasn't aware of the long term. I'm a newer person to Lowell. But so that's the whole purpose is when you talk about a bridge going to the auditorium, my first question sitting here is like, well, is that where it ends? But I think so it's to connect to other green spaces that keep going, because it seems like an expensive bridge to just go to the auditorium. But I think she explained that. So that's it.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Okay. I can add to the bigger picture with the trail connections as well, is that once you're on the auditorium side, you can actually walk from the auditorium all the way to the border with Andover and Lawrence. And the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust does that walk almost every year, where we walk from properties that are in Andover with the Andover Village Improvement Society. We walk the trails into Lowell through the sewer interceptor line that's on that side of the Merrimack, behind the auditorium. That's also part of the larger 200-mile Bay Circuit Trail. And Lowell is one of the last remaining gaps in the Bay Circuit Trail. If you want to continue the Concord River Greenway further out, we just worked really hard over the last year to extend the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail into Lowell, and that's a 30-mile trail that'll go all the way to Framingham. So this bridge is actually a really important link. Thank you for your question.
Can I also say one thing that we were thinking in the importance of this bridge is that there is no direct downtown access to the Riverwalk. Because it's behind Mills, you have to go through the Mills courtyard or behind the Songus Center to really get to it from downtown. So one of our goals was to provide an access node that would be accessible from the street, and the bridge would be accessible from the street. It would empty right into the plaza that's in front of the auditorium. That was our original intent with going up to Bridge Street, but as I mentioned, we actually found that going to Bridge Street would be more expensive than crossing the Concord and going to Merrimack Street, so.
Now, you did say that you have made arrangements to go behind that Picker building, and is that, whose property is that? Along the Concord River towards the auditorium? The trail goes along the river, yes. Is that city property?
Oh, that's Massachusetts Mills property. We are negotiating an easement that Massachusetts Mills would donate to us for public access and maintenance of that existing brick walk that is on their property.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Anything from the board? I think yes, go ahead.
No, I'm ready to.
Oh, okay.
issue an
I think
approval.
I think we can probably close the public hearing at this point.
I'll offer a motion to close the public hearing. And then,
Seconded?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
right, and then I'll further issue a motion to issue a City of Lowell Standard Order of Conditions approving this project with, I think I heard 2 specific conditions. One would be a restoration and landscape plan, because I don't think that detail was provided in the submittal. That would be subject to, review and approval by the city. Conservation, I'm sorry, go ahead.
They did have the layout materials plan includes the design.
It did? Maybe you could point that out for me, please?
So for example, 302.
302? On 305? Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Tree to be protected in place.
I got it. Okay.
That's correct. They think they'll have to go, but they aren't sure until they actually get the contractor. And the only thing that I was saying is that that plan doesn't include the 2 replacement trees that we haven't determined where they can go, but we do want project funds to pay for them.
Right.
And we had a second
Well, the
condition.
second condition was what I heard earlier, was, I think one of the figures had a staging area that's within the 21E cleanup, and I think I would suggest, amending that figure. So I guess what I would say is, in light of what I just heard about the existing figures showing kind of landscaping detail, I'll strike that first condition, because it's already in there, but just have that specific.
Except for the 2 replacement trees.
Right.
They can notify us when they find out where they're going.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So it'd be, notify when you know where the trees are, and then second condition would be just to amend that existing figure so that, there's no ambiguity with respect to where you're gonna be doing your staging.
Where will the new staging area be if it's not in that area?
So we don't know if we'll need it or not. We had essentially 2 staging areas that serve similar functions. One in the courtyard, one that would be in the turnaround loop area that's on the other side of the Picker building. As we move forward, we might need more of Mass Mills parking lot. If we lose the courtyard, we might not. We're hoping to minimize the impact on their parking lot, and they are as well. So we'd just eat up more of their parking lot if we needed it.
I mean, frankly, you could coordinate with Mass DEP too, in terms of if you needed part of that footprint for staging. There are engineering controls you could put in place so that you could stage it without creating any sort of friable asbestos type situation. So I don't want to be overly prescriptive on what you should do. I think that the take-home message is to coordinate that, if you decide you need that staging area, to coordinate with Mass DEP to make sure that staging is done in a way that, doesn't create an environmental problem. So I think I will clarify and say that issue a City of Lowell, the motion is to issue a City of Lowell standard order of conditions with 2 specific conditions, and they both can be done through coordination with our environmental agent, and that is to notify us as to where those tree plantings are gonna be, those 2 replacement trees at the time, when it's gonna be done. And then second, if there is a need for staging, to just, again, notify our environmental agent as to, where that's gonna be and how that's being coordinated with Mass DEP. I think we can keep it that simple.
Okay, motion for standard order with 2 conditions. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Good. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I would like to say also that this is a wonderful plan. I enjoyed reading it, and I'll enjoy even more seeing it built and available to the public.
I would agree. It's nice to see the pieces coming together.
Really like to thank the commission and also thank the public that came out.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a cool project.
Okay, our next agenda item is an enforcement order, Flavio Di Miranda, 293 Wentworth Avenue. It's a violation of a tree removal without a permit in the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands in the wetland resource area. Good evening.
Good evening.
Are you Mr. Di Miranda?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
This property, I just bought it in May 31st was the time we took the property. Actually, we moved in to Lowell on September 5th. So I removed some trees, so it's about 4-5 trees. And I didn't know it was wetland.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's a common occurrence in Lowell.
And also was, in the property it is, in the back there is a lot of Japanese knotweed that is called Japanese bamboo.
Yeah,
So it's invasive species too. So I remove it. So some neighbor came by and said to me that I could
Yeah.
not remove or change the environment, but it was trying to spread them. There was invasive
yeah.
species.
We've had a similar problem. I don't think it was your property, but another property just nearby a few years ago.
Yeah, but I did not remove anything from my property line. So
Yeah,
as I
well,
said,
from what I could see from the pictures that the agent took, there seemed to be several things happening out there. First of all, you did, as you say, remove some trees and some brush. Secondly, it looks like you may have brought in some soil to level something.
well, what happened was I had erosion on the back there. So what I did was I bought some good soil and throw back there, just level a little bit. But I did not change any environment there.
Well, and thirdly, now the soil is not stable. Obviously, since you've just put it down, it's in danger of washing into that wetland area.
But-
And fourthly, it appears that the things that you cut down perhaps weren't removed from the property. That
I have-
perhaps they're still there.
I have some, I have a picture here. It was not trees back there. It was tree on the sides. Nothing back there. I did not remove it. So the brush that is you see in a picture, it was on the front. The house was kind of live fence before, so I remove it and I throw back there.
Yeah, well, the resource area consists not just of the wet part, which eventually you would get to a wet part if you walked further back in that area. It's not just that, but it's also the areas adjacent to that, the 50 feet from the border of that wetland area. They call it a wetland even if there isn't water perhaps standing there. It's still a wetland because of the type of plants and the type of soils that are found there. So it's been designated as a wetland long before you bought the house. And that wetland extends not just behind your house, but behind many of the houses on that street and on the houses on the opposite street back up to it as well. In fact, at one point, they called that a bird sanctuary.
Yeah, I heard about the bird sanctuary, but as I said, even the neighbors that lived there for 25 years, 27 years, like the Bill on my side, he was supposed to come here, but he already passed out. So
Well,
even him didn't know about the wetland.
yeah, well, this is
And-
why, you're here. We're trying to,
No, I'm glad here. 'Cause,
we're trying to
now-
clarify it. I'm sure that you didn't know about it because it's not like a big pile of water back there. It's something that you would suspect, oh, that's wet. It's a seasonal type of a thing where
It is.
sometimes it's wet, sometimes it isn't.
What happened there, it's collects all the water drains from the streets that goes there, but it's not streamings
well-
or wetland there. If you walk, you can walk right now without get your feet dirty or wet.
Well,
So,
we have to go by the fact that it is a wetland, whether or not there's water there right now or not. So the place we have to protect is within the wetland itself, the places that sometimes are wet, and 50 feet on either side of that wetland. which is what we call a no disturb zone in our wetland bylaw. So I looked at a map that the department sent out to each of us, and it appears that the wetland no 50-foot area extends right up to the back of your shed or garage, whatever that building is in the back there. A shed?
It's about 3 generation owners. They have a shed back there. So
Okay,
it's
so.
a shed.
So if you can use that as a sort of a landmark, the back of that shed is where you need to consider that that's wet.
Okay?
It hits the back corner of that shed, according to what I saw. Is that
Another
correct?
way to look at it too is if you were to look to do anything in anywhere near there, you have to apply, you know.
Well, as I said, I didn't know. And,
No, but
Yeah.
even the neighbors I spoke with, like Bill, I think he knows someone here. So he had no idea about it. And also, I'm not the only one did any change there. So
Okay. Well, this is why you're here, so that we can
that's why
remediate what's been done, fix what's been done that shouldn't perhaps have been done, and also to protect the area going forward, so that you will know what you can and
Absolutely.
can't do.
Absolutely, yeah. I had
So-
a plan to have maple trees back there anyways, like red ones.
Yeah, red maple is an indicator that that's a wetland, because that's the type of place
Yeah,
they grow.
that's the plan I had, so that's,
Yeah.
I had a plan to do, because,
Okay, so this perhaps isn't going to fit in with what your plans were for that area, but I think what needs to be done, first of all, is anything that's been cut down that's within that 50 feet of that line, that's the wetland line, which is the rear of your shed. Anything within about 50 feet of that that's been already cut down needs to be removed out of that 50-foot area. You can move it up to behind the house or wherever, but it can't stay in the wetland. So some of those things you cut down are still lying in the wetland, I believe.
yeah, as I said, I can show you
Okay,
the
s-
old pictures here.
So,
Anything back there was cut by me. The only trees, as I said, and you can, I'm not sure if the agent explained that, but the only trees I cut it was on the side.
yeah, well, it
So it was
doesn't,
on the side on my line, so was
okay,
between.
but if the pieces of those trees ended up back there in the wetland area, they need to come out. So that's the first thing you need to do, is remove the cut material and get it out of that wetland area. Secondly, you can't put fill in a wetland area. So the dirt that you brought in, whether it's good dirt, bad dirt, sand, whatever it was, shells, wood chips, whatever that material was, if it's been deposited in a wetland area, it needs to come out. So whatever that material was, and it looks like it's fairly fine soil, that needs to be pulled back out of that 50-foot area as well. That can't stay there.
Well, I mean, the question I have is, the erosion there was before is not even worse, the soil that I put in?
Well,
I mean, it's not a lot
erosion-
anyway, it's not a lot anyways, it's just, I think was 10 yards of dirt
Okay,
anyways,
so it's
but-
not a lot then to move back out of that area. It has to be moved out of that area. Now, the reason for the erosion is that you didn't have anything to hold the soil together. So what you probably should think of next is what kind of plants, whether it's shady grass seed, or it could be a ground cover, it could be some kind of a euonymus vine or something, which grows very easily without too much care. But some kind of plant with roots needs to be planted there to hold that soil. You
Well-
can't just keep putting new soil on top of the old soil because the soil went away, eroded.
But the soil I put in, if you see the picture, everything was, right now is everything solid. Will not move anywhere on the side. And also, the wall that separate my property from the wetland property, from the city property, was falling apart. So I need to rebuild that wall too. And, I mean, as I said, I did not have the erosion before. Actually, was the one that caused the erosion, or I was trying to fix, because the previous owners, they did not care. They
Okay,
just,
but in order to do a project like that, when you're near or in a wetland, you need to come with your proposal to the Conservation Commission. You need to ask us, is this going to be something that needs to be regulated by the Conservation Commission, or can I do this and it won't have any effect on anybody? So that's the step that you skipped because you didn't know. You didn't know it was a wetland.
I had no idea.
Okay, so if we want to back up, if you have a plan to stop erosion, then you should come in with that plan, and we will determine whether or not that plan needs further study or whether that's something that you can do. So if you're saying you want to keep that soil, you need to come here with a plan showing what it is you want to do and where you want to do it. But we can't wait that long for you to do that. In other words, we're going to put a time limit on when you need to start doing this remediation. So removing the cut material has to occur. It has to come out of the wetland. The soil very likely has to come out. I wasn't able to get down in behind your house today to take a look like firsthand. I've only seen the photographs. But I know, what did you say, 1 truckload, 10 yards?
yep.
What is it, about 4 inches deep, 3 inches deep?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah,
Was about that. Was only the back of the shed, so.
Yeah, it's
And,
possible if you're...
and also about the grass, I had a plan, because,
Okay, well, we'd like to see that plan.
the only thing I tried to do is, I was to stop that, I was trying to stop the erosion and fill that holes, and have a grass grown there with the maple tree.
Let me,
Okay, well,
That's the only thing I was trying to do, but it's
can I
not grass that,
you know, what I'm hearing from you is kind of your proposal of what you wanted to do out there. As Commissioner Varnum was saying, what was wrong, what was done inappropriately is you did it without coming before the commission. Now, I understand you didn't know. I think moving forward, all you need to do is, on a piece of paper, write down a very few bullets, what is it you're looking to do and why, and you can just sketch out a picture pointing out where the wetland is, where the back of that shed is, and, you know, how you want to stabilize that area. I mean, you don't have to hire an engineer. I mean, for this level of project, I think you can do it yourself. And then, you know, working with our environmental agent, what this would be a way to, address the enforcement order you have so that we can close it out after you end up implementing your plan in accordance to what the commission thinks is appropriate. And I think Commissioner Varnum just said three very simple things. Get that cut vegetative debris out of the wetland. If you don't want to if you want to leave it as a compost stockpile somewhere outside of that 50-foot area, fine. If you want to take it to someplace else to dispose of it, that's legal, that's fine too, but it can't stay in the wetland. Secondly, the stabilization of the soil. The wetland serves a function. It's like a sponge. It regulates water flow. Having dirt in there is taking up the space that water would take up. So that's why it needs to come out of there. And then the third thing is to address the continued erosion, just there's all sorts of wetland mixes that you can get out there. It's not an expensive thing. You can just spread the wetland mix seed down there, and that'll stabilize, that area that's been eroding. And if there's anything further you want to do out there, I would say, think about it, put it down on your plan, and then you would come before us to ask as to whether or not that's something that can be done.
Yeah, but this is something that has to be done very quickly, because we do have an enforcement order. We are going into the time when we could get a rainy period at any moment, and I'm particularly concerned about the loose soil out there. So if you feel you are going to follow through and come in with a plan, I would say we'd want to see that plan at our next meeting.
Which is
If you,
December 13th.
And if that isn't forthcoming, if you don't have a plan by the next meeting, I would say that you better be working on a way to get the soil out of there, because that soil is not something that we can permit under normal circumstances. We have to know how much, where is it going, how is it going to be stabilized. So it's not something that is just going to be let go because you didn't know. If you did it with a plan in mind that you want to stop your erosion and get something, a good lawn or something back there, then, we'd like to work with you, because stopping erosion would be a good thing for that area as well. But, you have to do something about this quickly, because if we don't have a submission by the next meeting, I think we're going to give you probably a week to 10 days to get that soil out of there. And meanwhile, you can take the cut materials out of there. That should happen immediately.
About the plan, so I should bring here during the meeting or before?
You have to submit it before the meeting, yes.
For who?
You work with our environmental agent.
Patrick can,
Our office, Sean Machado, I think he
Sean
was the
Machado? All right,
gentleman
yeah,
that came onto property. If you can give it to him, me, or anyone in my office.
okay. I talked directly
Yeah,
to him.
they'll work with you to help answer the questions that you may have. I mean, because we understand that not everyone knows all the specific things you need to do.
Anybody doesn't know.
No, and that's why we have an environmental agent.
And anybody there doesn't know about it.
Yeah.
Anybody there. As I said, Bill, he lived there for 27 years.
well,
When
now,
we spoke with Sean, we talked to Sean, and
I'll tell you, what we're asking of you, though, is the exact same thing we ask of anyone that's done something, that they weren't aware of was out of compliance with the Wetlands Protection Act. We're not saying, you made a mistake. I mean, it wasn't an intentional thing. That doesn't allow you to just kind of not reconcile and fix it.
Okay.
And we want to work with you to fix it, but as Commissioner Varnum said, we need to do it in a timely manner. So I think what we're saying is that by the December 13th meeting, you're going to, between now and that meeting, you're going to work with Patrick, or someone from our office to come up with a plan, and then we will discuss it at the December 13th meeting so that shortly thereafter, everything has been addressed. As Commissioner Varnum said, there's no reason why you can't start doing some of the things now, like removing the branches.
yeah, I agree, and I will do everything as possible to, to do it. So, as I said, this thing I just fall in my lap, so I didn't know there was
No, I understand.
so much,
I'm-
things involved in, because I thought it was just my property. I was not doing
Listen,
anything
we're-
else in low property or.
We're not
you know.
being punitive. Our job is to protect the resource, and we're trying to explain to you
No,
how
I
we
agree.
do that.
I agree.
I wasn't able to get into your backyard to take a look before we spoke to you, but now that I know what you're trying to do, I may try to get a look at it. But meanwhile, Patrick, have you been out there, or?
I have not, but Sean has.
All right, I'm wondering if we need to be talking about a silt fence as well.
Okay.
Do you,
should,
I don't know whether Sean can determine whether there's a danger of erosion of that material into the wetland or,
now,
If-
he already walked with me.
yeah, I know, but we're talking about a silt fence now is something that prevents loose material from eroding into a place where you don't want it to erode, which in this case is the wetland.
But that was my question to Sean. I asked him if there was any problem with the dirt. And I showed him the previous photo, the erosion there. He said, you did not made any, this material was a worse situation here. So you're trying to fix. So, but you need to explain to you guys about that. But, you know,
Well,
that's the time I spoke with him. He said, you did not made anything to,
well, I think
trying to fix.
somebody from conservation probably needs to take a look at it, either Patrick or Christine or, I'm going to try to get out there as well. Because, you know, if we're not going to see you again for a month, we don't want that whole truckload ending up in the wetland, and then it's even harder to remove once it's gone down into the wet area.
My suggestion is following this meeting, you know, work with Patrick, and we could probably find a time to have one or a couple of the members of the commission to walk out in the back of your property with you and help you develop that plan, you know, so we can get this addressed quickly and cheaply.
So,
Do we-
do you have any questions?
yeah, in the case, if I want to do a fence back there, can I do it?
Well,
Or
that's something that you maybe could put on this plan that you're bringing back, because a fence is also fill, just the way the dirt is fill, a fence takes up space where water might want to go as well. So it would depend what kind of fence, where do you want to put it? If you're putting it 50 feet from the wetland, no problem. If you're putting it behind your shed, maybe a problem, if it's a heavy-duty fence.
That would be part two. I mean, the first thing we need to do is address this enforcement order. Once that's done, then anything that you want to do out there, what you would do is you come before the commission with a plan. You know, you would file what's called the request for determination of applicability, describing what you want to do, and then we would discuss that plan and determine whether or not, you know, it could proceed just as through that request for determination of applicability, or if given the scope of the project, we may require you to file a notice of intent. It really depends on the scale and the scope of your project. But I would suggest, why don't we kind of cross that bridge after we take care of, we can certainly discuss it with you, but I think we should cross that bridge after we take care of this enforcement order to get you back into compliance.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered the territory, and you know what you need to do, and we know what to expect. So just work with the conservation staff at City Hall, and
Patrick,
that's your best bet.
do we need to ratify the order? Has it been ratified? Okay. So I offer a motion to ratify this enforcement order.
And a second?
Seconded.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you for coming in.
thank you. So you're gonna.
Okay, our next thing on the agenda is the emergency, I'll wait for Patrick. Emergency certificate from 45.1 Bernier Street. We received a photograph of that from the Conservation Office. It was a fairly large tree that came down. I originally thought it was closer to the wetland than perhaps it was, but I thought that Patrick should issue this certificate because people see people working in wetlands and wonder what's going on, and then if they don't have any paperwork, it's hard to explain. So it was issued. I believe the tree has probably been removed by now. It was just a down tree, fairly large, probably a silver maple from the looks of it. So I don't think we have to ratify that, do we? No. Okay, and we do have minutes. There was one error in the minutes that I saw. October 11th, 2017 minutes, we referred to Beaver Brook instead of Black Brook, I believe, in the minutes. So they're both pretty
They both begin with a B.
sensitive areas. So if we have a motion, does anyone else have any corrections in the minutes?
I'm gonna have to abstain. I was absent that
Oh.
meeting.
And you weren't here?
Wasn't here, no.
Why don't we postpone the minutes until the next meeting?
I can review the footage and that way vote on it next time.
Okay, that's the end of the agenda. Is there anything else, Patrick? We have one thing to sign, I believe. Yes. Okay, thank you for watching. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded? All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night.